You're listening to Texas Real Estate with Todd Tramonte, brought to you by the Patrick Glaros Mortgage Team, DP Lambert at Goose Insurance, and Stryker Roofing. And now your host, real estate broker, team leader, best-selling author, coach, consultant, and speaker, Todd Tramonte.
Welcome, folks. This is Texas Real Estate, and I am Todd Tramonte, and we are joined by the best crew in the business. We've got the producer extraordinary, the young MG, the Mason Goss, the 2-year flipper. What's up, Mason? You got a mic.
Is that all I am to you? Just the 2-year flipper?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only way.
You had some other things that you said that I appreciate, so I think I'm okay for now.
Your value is in Jesus, Mason. We've also got the Yanni Donnie, the English wonder, Ian Daniels. He's got a mic. Ian, how English will you be today?
We'll go with mid-level English today.
Mid-level English. Yeah. Keep your eye on the Burrow. Keep your eye on the English soccer. Hey, by the way, folks, today we're going to get into state of the market, maybe a little more than we have lately, as we see summer in the sense of kids out of school kind of wrapping up. There's a lot to talk about opportunities in the marketplace. Where might you invest? If you wanted to invest in this market, where might you do that? I'll tell you where I'm looking for investments. I'll tell you where I think you should look for investments. Now, if you don't think of yourself as an investor, don't bail out. Stay with us. If you own a home or have any desire to own a home, on some level, you will be an investor. You will be a landowner in the great state of Texas, or at least a property owner in the great state of Texas. And that's a beautiful thing. We're going to talk a little bit more about the benefits of ownership, investment-wise and non-investment-wise. We'll talk about that as we make our way through the show today.
If you have any tips for my E-Trade account, I'd appreciate it too.
I've got 0 tips for your E-Trade. I know very little about PE ratio. I actually know a little bit. I'm just not as excited about it as I am real estate. Never have been. Not sure I ever will be. But we'll also take your questions today, folks. So make sure you send those over to us at treradio.com. That's short for Texas Real Estate, treradio.com. You can find past radio show episodes, all of our recommended pros, vendors, and information about the show there. You can also track us down on social media pretty much anytime. Just look for Todd Tramonte or Todd Tramonte Home Selling Team or Texas Real Estate with Todd Tramonte. Try to be pretty easy to find. And we're responsive in pretty much all of those places pretty darn quickly. If you haven't checked your property value in a long time, you're doing it wrong. And the right way to do it is less than 1 minute at valuethishouse.com. You can find out what your home would sell for or rent for in the current market in about 45 seconds at www.valuethishouse.com. Totally free, no charge, no nothing. It'll give you a valuation on your property as well as a confidence score. If the confidence score isn't over 90 or so, you can just reply to that email and say, hey, could you guys do a custom valuation for me? And we'll figure out the area. We'll have our agent specialist in that area probably reach out and give you a call just to get a little more specific information to do a more specific and deep dive valuation for you. That might be because you're refinancing, thinking about selling, investing, renting it out, or whatever. We don't care what the reason is. We'd be happy to do that for you. But it all starts in less than 1 minute at valuethishouse.com.
I did it this past week with Mari, who's one of our newest agents on the team. I was showing her that exact tool. It was within $4,000 of what my home was appraised for in April.
Yep,
so
pretty
close.
awesome when it's that accurate. Also, Chris Kroc, if you're a regular WBAP listener, Chris Kroc does the evening show, local news, politics, all sorts of shenanigans, tomfoolery, hooliganisms, and fun over there. But I go on with him pretty often, and he did it live on air the other night, and he was really, really happy with his results. So, and as a matter of fact, when he signed up, one of our team members saw it and gave him a hard time, which is the right thing to do with Chris Kroc, is to give him a hard time as often as you possibly can. So if you have not checked your property value out in the last 30 days, normally I'd say twice a year. Right now I'm saying at least once a month because the market's a little bit volatile. Do that at valuethishouse.com.
There's a lot of buyers out there right now that they're feeling a little worried, Todd. That's the feeling that we're getting when we're having conversations with them. Somebody said it feels like 2015, 2016 again, where a property comes online, goes live on the market, and within just a few days, seemingly it has multiple offers, and they're always over asking price. And the biggest question that we're getting is like, how do I go ahead and get a house in this market?
Yeah, there's so many things we could unpack about that. It is the wild, wild west out there again, where people are fighting over houses. What is below the surface there, though, is it doesn't have to be done that way. We actually have a private portfolio of homes at the Todd Tramonte home selling team, which is literally an in-house private list of homes that can be bought without competing with other buyers. These are homes that are not being publicly marketed right now. They are not on the main websites. They're not on the big portals. They're not on the MLS, but they are potentially available for sale. They are almost all certainly available for sale. And that's totally compliant with MLS rules and laws and all those things. But if you're a client of ours, if you've reached out to us and connected with us and said, please help me find one of those, then we can show you that list. But we cannot publicly market that list. That's kind of the whole point. So it doesn't have to be done that way. Now, if you are out in the general market looking at homes with other buyers competing with you, we gave some tips, I think 2 weeks ago on the show on how to put together really competitive offers. And we literally gave away 3 or 4 of our strategies. Now we've got dozens of strategies for that. So our clients still get the very, very best of what we have to offer. There's also a home buyer tips series on our YouTube channel that I would point people to go check out. You can go to TTHST, Todd Tramonte Home Selling Team, by the way, short for Todd Tramonte Home Selling Team, TTHST.TV, like .television.tv. And you can see that home buyer tips series where we walk through how to win in a multiple offer situation, how to win in a single offer situation, when to make an offer, how many homes to view, how to get a strategy together, and more and more and more. So I could answer this question for an hour, but the point is the best way to win in the current market and not get caught up in heavily competitive situations is to get a strategy together up front with a great agent. Obviously that sounds self-serving, but a lot of agents are not great. It just is the way it is. So if you don't have an agent who specializes in working with buyers only, who knows the area, who is full-time, who is dedicated to constant learning and training because the market's always changing and moving, who has a track record of delivering world-class results with some form of a guarantee on those results, then we would love to get a call from you because that's what we're committed to. Those are the things our team members and our team offers. You can find us anytime at 214-310-0008, or you can text us 214-310-0008, or you can go online at overunderagent.com for buying and selling. overunderagent.com.
For somebody that is thinking of selling this year, maybe in the next few months, what would you say are some of the easiest, cost-effective, cost-friendly things that people can do to really increase their home value?
Okay, first, let me point you to YouTube again because we have 3 video setups on there. One is low-cost ways to increase your property value. One is kind of a mid-level cost way to increase your property value. And then we have some high-cost ways, right? So this question is for those low-cost ways. Let me give you my favorite one. It's not necessarily the most valuable one, but it's one of them. Landscape lighting. I love this one. I talk about it once or twice a year on the radio show. You can run up to one of the big box stores or a hardware store or online somewhere, and for like $75, $85, you can get a set of landscape lights, or you could have someone professionally do it, which is certainly better. But the cheapest way to do it is to go buy a kit with like 12 lights and the wiring, and you plug it into a plug with a timer. But landscape lighting, although very affordable and very easy to install, is still very rare. But it does make your house stand out from other homes on the block, and it provides for an opportunity for some really great photographs of the house, which allow for some really great first impressions of the house. Now,
for somebody that's never heard of landscape lighting, like
literally lights in the flower beds
go.
that shine on the flower beds, or lights at the base of your house that shine up onto the structure. And sometimes you could go as far as lights up in the trees that shine down into the yard. So basically lighting up your landscaping and lighting up your house, obviously in low light situations, evening, dusk, dawn, nighttime. But it sets your house apart. It gives it a higher end, more costly look. Some other things are simple things like painting doors and baseboards and trim, changing out handles and doorknobs and fixtures on cabinetry and things like that. Those are all relatively low cost that actually make a big difference. There's other simple things like that cost you almost nothing, like washing your windows inside and out before you show the home. More light in, better views out, things like that. Keeping the lawn really clean, really well maintained, flowers, green grass, things like that. There's lots of other things, but those are some quick ones. And go check out that YouTube video series at tthst.tv. Let me just stop for a second. You're listening to Texas Real Estate with Todd Tramonte. It's not all about me, but the Todd Tramonte home selling team is our real estate team that we run all week. And that's where we test all these theories. That's where we have 19 plus years of experience trying this and getting better and learning more about how clients can improve the value of their home, sell quicker, sell for more money, get better deals with buyers, all those things. So our YouTube channel is where we share all those lessons and expertise, as well as this radio show. But we can do a lot more on YouTube all day, every day throughout the week than we can do in 1 hour on the weekends on the show. So the show is a great resource, but also check out that YouTube channel at tthst.tv. Subscribe to it, and then it'll let you know every time we make new videos. You don't have to watch every video, that's fine, but it'll let you know when we make new videos so you can watch the ones you like. You might find that we update that series and it's like 10 new ways to increase your property value for less than $100. That would be a great video for you if this question is interesting. So anyway, check that out at tthst.tv. We're brought to you by Stryker Roofing. If you have any roofing needs, gutter needs, siding needs, exterior maintenance needs whatsoever, you want to reach out at strykerbuilds.com, BUILDS. As you've heard me say many times, they did a patio cover for us. They did the roofing over that. They've done complete roof systems for many of our clients and friends. My good buddy Jody is one of the owners over there. They are honest, hardworking people that will shoot you straight. They're the most technically expert-driven roofing company I've ever been around. They're phenomenally ethical to the point that they're leading the charge in and around regulation of roofing companies. They own an insurance company as well, so they totally understand the claims process, when you should and shouldn't file a claim. So anything roofing related, call them first, 844-243-ROOF, 844-243-ROOF, or go online to Stryker Builds, BUILDS, strykerbuilds.com.
If you have not been to valuethishouse.com yet, I don't know why, but you need to go there right now. You need to go to valuethishouse.com to get your home valuation in less than 1 minute. I can tell you what it's worth and what it might rent for in less than 1 minute. Valuethishouse.com.
Okay, let me just stop for a second and say, look, we drop that a lot. The reason is when you think about your other investments, how often do you check on them?
I go on my E-Trade account about 7 times a day.
Right. If you have a retirement account, you probably get a statement every month, right? You probably check that statement every month, or you read it most of the time. Maybe not every single time, but you're like,
we check things weekly.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people check at least monthly if you have a reasonable investment in something, right? Your kid's college account or your retirement account, or I don't know. I could go on and on, but the point is, if you have a significant investment, you should keep your eye on it. And I appreciate, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but I appreciate that people view their home not only as an investment, but I often sort of mourn the fact that people don't think about their houses as an investment more than they do. And this is a really easy way for you to keep an eye on your investment every month or so. And I'm talking about valuethishouse.com. So I don't want to annoy you with it, but we feel that it's really important for you, and it's free and it's easy. That's why valuethishouse.com is important. Now, if you go there and you sign up, you have the option to get a monthly market report for us, where we will send you every month what's happening in the market around you, what other people are selling for, what the averages are, what the momentum is. But you have the ability to go there as often as you like. There's no limit to how many times you can use it, and say, what's changed? What's my value? So that's why we think it's really important. So check it out, valuethishouse.com.
Last week we talked about what the active option period is. Question came in this week: what is the active kick out?
Heyo, and next week, what is active contingent? No, I'm just kidding. Active kickout is actually a really interesting one. And by the way, I'll give away a little trick I use when I buy homes for myself. I start by looking at active kickouts. I've never actually bought one that way, but I've come close. Active kickout means the home is still active on the market, but it is currently under contract with a buyer. That buyer is contingent in some way, meaning, let me give you an example. Okay, Ian is the seller, and I, Todd, am the buyer, right? So Ian has his home on the MLS. Mason is his agent, and he's got it on the MLS in active kickout status. So what that means is that Ian is selling his home to me, Todd, but I can only buy his house if something else happens. I will buy Ian's house contingent upon the sale of my house, contingent upon inheriting some money, contingent upon something, doesn't matter really, something else. And I have signed and agreed to the fact that because I am contingent upon something else, if Ian gets a better offer or a cleaner offer or a more certain offer before I am able to close and fund on the house, he can kick me out of the deal and bring somebody else in. He has that first right of refusal. He has the ability to say, sorry, because you're contingent, a more solid deal came along. I'm ending this deal and I'm moving forward with this new person. So he can kick me out. Now, as a buyer, if I'm looking at homes and I find, oh, Ian's got this one, it's active kick out. Let me see what he's got. I might call his agent, Mason, and say, hey, Mason, what can you legally and ethically tell me about this deal? I might be able to do a little bit better. And that might be one way I get access to a property that most other people aren't willing to look at because they're ignoring it because it is technically under contract. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's what active kickout is. A lot of agents don't even use that status, and a lot of agents, probably a whole lot more, don't fully understand what it's used for. And sometimes they actually have that kickout leverage, but they don't use it. So they go all the way to pending, or they stay in active option or something like that.
So just for the trifecta, give us the active contingent as well.
Well, it's very, very similar, but it's when you don't have that kickout authority or privilege, but it is still contingent. So you still have the contingency involved. The buyer has the ability to back out if their contingency doesn't follow through, but the seller doesn't have the right to kick out before the contingency comes through.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And we don't go into terminology too much on the show.
These are all licensed agent terminology.
Yes.
Most buyers searching online will never see this stuff. And that is where real estate agents still have access to a lot more information than buyers and sellers. They don't have access to a whole lot more than they used to, but there's still a level of information that you need a licensed agent to help you get access to.
Yeah, that's good. And this is a question that I know we've had before, but it's one that keeps coming up. So let's go over it. Who is it that pays for the title policy in the transaction? Carl pays for it.
Carl always pays for it.
And I want to kind of extend the question a little bit and just talk a little. Have you mentioned in there about earnest money, option money? Like what are all these terms that we have? All the money that gets paid out and all that.
Okay, is it okay if we go rapid fire?
Do it.
All right, rapid fire. The seller's title policy in this Texas promulgated standardized contract, it is called a seller's title policy, which means it's an insurance policy that's going to insure the chain of title, meaning who owned it and who sold it to who and who bought it from who, and did every time it's ever been bought and sold, did that happen legally and ethically? And so the current owner actually owns it. No one else has any claim to it. That's what a title policy insures. It's called a seller's title policy because the seller is telling the buyer, we will insure the fact that this is legal and I own it and you can own it outright. And if something goes wrong, this insurance will protect you. So the seller is insuring it for the buyer. But it doesn't mean the seller has to pay for that. It's still negotiable. There's a place in the contract to say, oh, buyer will pay that, or seller will pay that, or both will pay parts of it, or whatever the case is. So that's what that is. It's a regulated fee structure, so you can't negotiate what that insurance cost. It's a standardized, required insurance fee.
But who pays it is negotiable.
Who pays for it is negotiable. The amount is fixed, but who pays for it is negotiable. Traditionally, in a stable market, the seller's going to pay for it a lot more than the buyer. But in a market like this, where sellers have a lot of leverage, buyers are getting asked to pay for it and paying for it way more than normal. I'll leave it at that so we can cover some of the other ones. Option fee is a buyer paying a fee for the option to back out of a deal while they inspect it and investigate it and get to know it better and measure things and find out, okay, I saw it, I toured it, I liked it. Now I want to look under the hood. Now I want to give a deeper look with inspectors and, general inspector, plumbing inspector, roofing inspector, all those kind of things. And if I don't like what I see, or if it gets costly, or if it's not exactly what I thought it was, I can back out. I will pay you a fee to give me some time to do that while your house is off the market and you can't sell it to anybody else. The earnest money is a semi-refundable deposit where I say, hey, I'll put 1% or so of the purchase price at risk with the title company in a neutral escrow account while I figure all this out. But I'm letting you know I'm serious. I'll put some money up front to let you know I'm not wasting your time. And then if I don't follow the terms of the contract, I will lose that money to you. If I do follow the terms of the contract, that money will then apply towards my purchase price, my down payment, my fees, or whatever.
Got it.
Did we cover all the ones we wanted to cover?
I think we got them all.
What? Yeah!
There's so many terms that go into all this, and it becomes so confusing.
That's like 1/5 of all, not even close.
Yeah.
And that's why real estate agents are important. Let me just make that point real quick. All real estate agents are not the same. Your nephew or goofball neighbor or whatever who has a license, it doesn't mean they offer you any value whatsoever. Also, your friend who's been in the business for 37 years doesn't mean they offer you any value either. Just because you have a license or just because you have experience doesn't mean you're doing this every day, all day, learning, researching, practicing, making some mistakes and learning from them. And that's why a team like ours at the Todd Tramonte Home Selling Team can bring so much value, because not only are we constantly learning, we're also constantly educating, which means we have to be at the top of our game. We train agents all over the country in our coaching and consulting business. We can't afford to not know what we're talking about. Our agents, in my opinion, are the most dedicated, best trained agents in all of North Texas, and I would put them up against anyone from any company any day.
Well, just a quick brag story on that. Mari, that recently joined the team, she came from another brokerage in another part of the state, and she really felt like she got good training, right? And she's been in our agent in training role for 3-ish weeks now, and she just said to me that the level of training that she's got to go through here, although some of it she had heard other places,
she'd heard the
way that it was explained and the way that it was taught to her really clicked.
Yep.
And it was something that she was hoping for, but is so excited that actually happened.
Yep, I love that. And that's really where I feel like God's gifted me is in, sales and marketing. I love it. I'm passionate about it, but also the education and the teaching of that. And that comes up with all my personality assessments and spiritual gifts assessments and feedback from friends and people. But that's why we love doing this radio show. That's why we love the YouTube channel. Check it all out at treradio.com or head over to overunderagent.com if we can help you with anything at all. We'll be right back with more Texas real estate and market info and investment tips after the break.
Welcome back to Texas Real Estate with your host, real estate expert, team leader, and best-selling author, Todd Tramonte.
Welcome back. Look, I don't know who made that intro audio, but I'd like to give him a gold star, Mason. You think we could get that message back to the producer?
I think I can let him know.
Listen, folks, we've lost Ian in the second half of the show, but we have gained a much more vocal young MG, the Mason Goss. And before we went to the break, I promised that we would talk a little bit more about the market and a lot more about investing. So I'm going to give Mason the microphone here in a minute. Not quite yet. I'm going to give him the microphone and let him pepper me with they're your questions, but they come in every week. And obviously we're not able to get to every question every week. With a lot of them are the same, is my point. We get every single week we do the show, throughout the week in the business or directly to the show, we get the question, is this a good market to invest in, and tons of others. So we'll dig into a bunch of those here in a minute. And maybe the young MG himself will bring some of his own questions for everyone's benefit. This segment of the show is brought to you by Stryker Roofing, who, by the way, can help with some of the repairs and work on investments. But for any of your roofing needs, gutter needs, siding needs, outdoor construction needs, anything like that, you're going to want to go to strykerbuilds.com, BUILDS. That's what my wife and I did not quite a year ago when we were ready to do a patio extension with a roof extension. We had Stryker come out. They did a great job with that. But if you haven't had someone on your roof to check it out in a while, you need to do that so that you don't wait too long and get caught with a total replacement or a really, really, really costly repair. 844-243-ROOF, 844-243-ROOF, or online at strykerbuilds.com. If you have questions about investing, get those to us. You can do that right now at treradio.com. That's the radio show website. TRE, short for Texas Real Estate, treradio.com, or you can always track me down on social media, pretty much anywhere. Just look up Todd Tramonte. Be happy to do that for you. We'll talk a little bit more about the market, but we're going to let Mason drive this bad boy for a while. He's wearing his Texas Whiskey Trail t-shirt right now. Free sponsorship, by the way, for Texas Whiskey Trail there. He's a big fan. And now let's give him the mic and see what happens.
Thanks for the shout out. I'm sure they're appreciative. I guess, since we're going to talk about investment, I'm sure a lot of people are wanting to know, Todd, what is your strategy for investment? And then how, for other people that maybe haven't thought about it too much or maybe have thought about it, what is a good how do you figure out the best strategy for you?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that is a brutal first question for you to ask, but I will answer it. The reason it is because my answer to this question is atypical. It's contradictory to what most real estate agents do and what most real estate agents would tell others to do. At the moment, I do not own one single residential rental property. And that is, I believe, the most common investment strategy of real estate agents, but also, the general public that wants to invest in real estate is most likely to own a small number, 1, 2, 3 rental properties. Now, I think it's a great investment option. It's just not most fitting with my personality, my giftedness, our overall wealth building financial portfolio, and values and things like that. So I do own our office building, and in a lot of ways, it's the same thing. It's commercial versus residential. It's office tenants versus families or homeowners. But it's rental revenue on an owned asset, right, on physical property with land and a structure. So in that regard, that's one of our primary investment vehicles. Outside of real estate, we've got some stock and mutual fund investments, things like that. But my primary investment is our company, right? It's the Todd Tramonte Home Selling Team, our brokerage, Market Experts Realty, our coaching and consulting company, Real Estate Growth Systems. So those are a handful of the investment vehicles that we approach, my wife and I, and our business. I'll add one more note on the rental real estate piece, and then I'm sure there's other questions on that. But I referenced that the typical rental investors have 1 or 2 or 3 properties. I want to make one point very clear that I've made on the show in the past, but the absolute worst number of residential real estate rental investments is 1. Right?
Really?
1 is the worst number. Now, that doesn't mean 1 is the wrong number, because you typically have to have 1 before you can have 2. But if you only have 1 rental, if you have 1 single family house that you own as a rental investment and it's vacant, I'm going to ask you a question here, Mason. If you have 1 and it's empty, how many of your properties are empty from a percentage standpoint?
I'm going to go with 100%.
That is correct. Pierce High School graduate, University of Texas at Dallas graduate. They learned him up right, folks. If you have 1 property and it's empty, 100% of your properties are empty, right? And that's just a risky situation to be in, right? So depending on a typical cash flow scenario, you might have made decent money on that rental for the year, and then it's empty for 3 months, and now you might have lost money for the whole year. That doesn't mean it's bad, because like I said, a lot of people are going to have one rental before they have two. But really, until you have 3 or 4, the diversification and the critical mass really isn't there for that to be a significant long-term high-quality investment wealth builder for you. Now, there's always exceptions. So if you had an unbelievably high cash flow property in an area that just never has vacancy, you certainly could do really well with one. That's just not a repeatable process for most people. So it's not a great strategy to suggest. So we'll take some other questions, but those are my initial thoughts to your immediately targeted question of how we invest.
I have a question. When you finally get a rental property, how do you know how much to charge for rent? How do you figure that out, right?
Great question. I just realized I didn't fully answer the first question. So I'm going to go back. We have flipped some houses over the years. And in the beginning, when I got into real estate, that's all I did was buy, remodel, sell quickly, cash lump sum earnings. We can talk more about that later, but I wanted to mention that we still do that from time to time, but just life stage right now, we don't do a lot of that. To answer your second question, how do you determine the rental rate? The shortest answer is by analyzing what other homes in the area that are similar to yours are renting for and determining the difference in yours and how you can maximize the rental income of that property. The number of bedrooms is going to drive that. The square footage is going to drive that. The school districts are going to drive that. Proximity to parks, recreation, shopping, restaurants, churches, grocery, all those things are going to determine the desirability of it. But basically, it's a market analysis of what will the market bear. A good rule of thumb, a general indicator, don't exclusively use this, but about 1% of value, right? So if you had a $200,000 home, it's probably going to be in the ballpark of $2,000 a month in rent. In some areas, it's always going to be lower than that. In other areas, it's always going to be higher than that, right? Because what you pay for a home doesn't necessarily mean that's what it's worth, right? But that 1% rule is a good kind of, you're typically not going to find yourself way off of that, right? Now, another question that's sort of implied in that is how much cash flow per month makes for a good rental, right? So like how much can I charge doesn't always indicate how much you can earn, right? So let's say you're getting $2,000 a month rent for a $200,000 house, but for whatever reason, it cost you $2,100 a month. Well, that's obviously negative cash flow. That's not good. You're losing $100 every month
just to own it.
Even before you had an air conditioning go out or a roof that needs to be replaced or foundation damage. Now, some people do that. I don't suggest it ever, but some people do that because they believe that $200,000 house is going to be worth $300,000 in 5 years. So I'll lose $100 a month to make $60,000 a year over the next 5 years. Okay, well,
we're playing the long game.
$20,000, I guess. Anyway, the point is, that's a speculative game. The cash flow game of I make money every month on this is obviously a safer, more secure, more long-term strategy. So we'll leave it at that for now. I'll happy to answer any more.
I guess along the same lines, like how do you maximize your profits?
Great question. We could do 5 radio shows on this, but let me give you a handful of nuggets right here. And before we do that, let me just say, when we're thinking about cash flow, that's usually like, your total rental income minus your expenses. And for most people, one of your largest expenses is going to be a mortgage payment. Obviously, I strongly advise to get out of debt as fast as you can in every way you can, even on rental property. But debt is the primary way that most of us, all of us, acquire real estate. Patrick Glaros and his team at Cardinal Financial are excellent at helping you secure financing for rental properties as well. So check them out at patrickglaros.com, patrickglaros.com. Near all-time low rates right now for owner-occupant purchases, but also for rental investment property purchases. So you definitely want to reach out to Patrick and his team at patrickglaros.com. Now, how do you maximize your total income for a rental property? I stopped myself just then from saying rental income because the very best property owners are generating income from more than just rent. or more than just traditional property rent, right? So let's just say you had a fourplex, okay? Sometimes there are parking fees. Sometimes there's some storage units or closets on site. There's some additional rental fees. You might even have a vending machine. You might have a little bit of an association fee for community maintenance, property maintenance, pools, or something like that, where there might be some additional revenue to be earned. If you have a single family house, which most people are going to have, let's talk about that a little bit more. Maximizing your rental income would look like what we talked about a minute ago, analyzing what other people are paying for homes nearby, and then thinking about, could I get a little bit more money for rent if I took care of the lawn maintenance? Could I get a little bit more money for rent if all of the utilities were included? Could I get a little bit more than my cost, right? If I just said, look, you write me one check every month, don't worry about electrical, don't worry about heating and air conditioning, don't worry about water and trash, lawn maintenance, any of that. Yeah, you could probably get a little bit more because you're providing convenience. That's why milk costs more at the corner store than it does at the grocery store. It's easier to get in and out. It's more convenient. It's closer to the house, whatever. So there are some ways to do that. Obviously, the flip side of that is by minimizing your expenses, right? So if a house is paid for, you're going to cash flow more. But you're also, even if you thought about, if you made a true comparison to borrowed money, you're not paying interest, right? So the amount you paid in cash for the house is the same as the amount you're paying in principal for the home, but the interest is going to cost you more. If you can minimize your tax cost by protesting your property taxes or making sure that you're being accurately taxed, if you manage your tax return by fully depreciating that asset, writing off any interest or anything in any legal ethical deductions you have, then you could lower your expenses, right? If you can get lawn care done cheaper, if you can get property maintenance done cheaper, then you can create a bigger gap between your income and your expenses, therefore maximizing your revenue. There's other ways, but those are a handful of the simple, traditional, predictable ways that most property owners can take advantage of to increase their cash flow. Some other ways, just to add one or two more, are to eliminate or minimize deferred maintenance, right? So what I mean is every year you probably have some pest control or some heating and air conditioning or property, touch-ups, paint, window, wood rot, that kind of stuff. But every 5 or 10 years or more, you might need to replace a fence or an air conditioning unit or an appliance or something like that. If you can maintain those, you might actually need to spend a little bit more every quarter or every year so that you spend a lot less every 5 or 10 years. Over the long haul, that can increase your profitability on a property as well.
I guess along with this question, how do you calculate your expenses? What are your expenses going to be on a rental property? We figured out how to calculate rent. How do we, on the flip side, calculate the expenses?
Yeah, I'll be careful not to try to answer this 100% completely in a short radio answer because it could be different for a lot of people and it could be pretty in-depth. There are some really great rental property management softwares and tools and just kind of worksheets, but basically it's going to be any debt you have on the property, any maintenance you have on the property, taxes, insurance. Those are going to be your big ones, right? A lot of people, when they're analyzing the profitability of a property, don't fully calculate taxes and insurance, and it ends up catching up with you. The other one that a lot of people really underestimate is those deferred maintenance items, right? You're like, we won't have to replace an air conditioning for 20 years. It'll be fine. But you didn't set aside cash for when it came and it happened to come in 7 years, or there's a lightning strike or a water damage, something crazy. And those things can sneak up on you and eat up a year's worth of profitability. But as far as calculating a traditional monthly expense list that's reliable, you're pretty much looking at any debt that you have, taxes, insurance, and primary maintenance, regular maintenance.
Got it. Appreciate that answer.
Yeah. We've been focusing a lot on rental income. I know we have questions about a lot of other investors types. So if there's any of those, we could definitely take some of those right now. While I'm thinking about insurance and taxes, let's just talk about DP Lambert at Goosehead Insurance. Same thing as we always say, you ought to evaluate your insurance every year. I say find an insurance person that you trust, stick with them for the long haul, but find someone that can change your insurance carrier every year or two as needed to maintain minimal expenses and maximum coverage. DP and his team over at Goosehead can also do this for you on a rental property or a flip property. And he even connected me with another guy at Goosehead that handles our commercial insurance on our office building and other things that we do. So DP Lambert, dp.lambert@goosehead.com, or you can always go to treradio.com, our radio show site, and find DP and all of our recommended pros with their names, phone numbers, emails, all that good stuff. DP Lambert at Goosehead Insurance.
Okay, I want to get to how to flip houses here in a little bit, but before I ask that question, I want to ask about Airbnb investments. I think those are kind of the more a burgeoning market, one would say. You know, you're not sure where it's going to go.
It sure was burgeoning until the COVID. Yeah.
Take that into account, but yeah.
No, well, I mean, it's definitely.
How do you feel about Airbnb?
Definitely still, it's still in its infancy in a lot of regards. I mean, vacation rentals have been around forever and ever and ever, but short-term vacation rentals as sort of a portfolio investment strategy, meaning that you might own a handful of them as like a legitimate, significant income source per year, is relatively new. Certainly, I mean, you think about things like Uber, and this is the Uber of real estate, where you jump on an app, you trust someone who you've never met to jump in their car. This is like, I trust someone to sleep in my property, or I trust someone to go sleep in their property. You know, like, that was really weird not that long ago, right? Now, all of a sudden, it's like, sweet, I've got tons of options. VRBO, Airbnb, HomeAway. There's like 6 more, right? And
it used to be, at least when I was a kid, don't trust the stranger. Don't get in the car with the stranger. Yeah. And now it's like, oh, well, just get it. Yeah. Get in the car with the stranger.
Push a button and summon a stranger.
Yeah.
With
how things have changed.
Virtually no more information. And now it's like, go sleep in a stranger's house. Or let strangers sleep in your house. But anyway, all that to say, this is a new deal, relatively new. It can be highly profitable, but more people fail at this than succeed. I don't have specific numbers, but I would feel extraordinarily confident in the majority of people are failing at this. Some of it is because of terribly foolish expectations, right? Like, I'm going to buy a gorgeous mountain house in Colorado, and I will get to use it for free, and I'll make a bunch of money every year. This is kind of a no-brainer. It's really simple. Well, it's not simple, and it's not a no-brainer. It can't, well, I'll take it back. It can be simple, but it's not easy, and it is more work than what we might call a no-brainer. Now, I do know people that invest in this very successfully, but they are doing the research and the due diligence to say this is a market where I can keep a relatively high occupancy rate at a relatively high rental rate and make up for the obvious vacancy that's going to exist, right? You have a mountain house. It's really popular during ski season and actually during the summer season, but a lot of the in-between seasons, it's just not as popular. I have a beach property. They tend to be really popular during the summer months. They tend to be not as popular during the colder months, although beach properties tend to do well in communities that have off-season entertainment. A lot of times it's a music festival, food festival, an arts community, things like that. Bicycling and things like that. But if you're not careful and you just buy a property because you want it and you think you're going to pay for it with rental income, lots and lots of people are failing at that. One other thing I'll add, and we've got some videos on this on our YouTube channel at tthst.tv, more and more regulations are being put on short-term rental owners. And that's what we mean when we talk about Airbnb, VRBO, that kind of stuff. Short-term rental, 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time kind of stuff. Cities and states are putting in taxes and fees and permits and registrations. And so the cost of those things are going up, and the regulations around cleaning and registrations and documentation and tax filings are getting more critical. So, as with just about everything else, more regulation tends to make things slightly slower, more difficult, more costly, but can help.
You can search Plano Airbnb in YouTube, and our video will be the one that pops up.
There you go. So anyway.
All right. I did want to get to, with the last 5 minutes, about flipping houses, right? I think a lot of people find that as a very attractive real estate investment. What is your strategy for flipping houses, Todd? I know I did the 2-year flip,
right?
Or am currently doing it, and that one's not always applicable for people because you have to live in the property,
right?
It's kind of a more specific situation.
Quick rundown: a 2-year flip would be buying a home, remodeling it, living in it for 2 years, and selling it with 100% of your profits being tax-free up to $500,000 as a married couple or up to $250,000 as an individual. It's very difficult to hit the cap in Texas. You're going to make a bunch of money tax-free if you do that correctly. My book's on Amazon for like $1.99 or 99 cents. It's like you can read it in 40 minutes. It's a booklet. Traditional flipping, I always tell people you flip for cash, you hold for cash flow, right? So I might try to flip 1 or 2 houses a year and make $30 or $40 or $50,000 on each one so that I can go and buy another rental with a good sized down payment and then make minimum $200 per month cash flow for every door that I own per home. If it's a duplex, I need to make $400, fourplex, $800 at minimum, right? Because there's costs that can catch up with you, right? So flip for cash, hold for cash flow. The flipping piece is also oversimplified on HGTV and the DIY network and all those places because a lot of people get this wrong. They overpay, they over remodel, they underestimate the hold cost, the carrying cost. They don't factor in things like insurance and labor and things like that. So it's a quick way to get burned big, but it's also a good way to turn some relatively quick, large lump sum cash income. Again, taxes eat up a lot of that, and people don't think about that, which is the beauty of the 2-year flip strategy. But when I got into the business, all I was doing was flipping, and we were flipping 6, 7, 8 houses a month in multiple cities with multiple remodeling crews. And so I learned a lot real fast. That was a very different real estate market, very different lending market, et cetera, et cetera. But every market's a good market for all of these investments if you're careful and if you adjust your strategy. So in the current market, it's very difficult to buy a home at 50% of market value and just turn around and make a bunch of money. But it's easier than most markets if you can buy a home at a good price to be able to, if you do the right things and have the right agent with the right strategy, to sell it at a record-breaking sales price. So there's always an upside.
I think I would sit on that real quick because I think with all these different types of real estate investments, one key thread that lines them all together is that you need a great agent to help you figure some of these things out.
For this week, we'll wrap up on that, right? There's a strategy for every market, and there's really a strategy for every investment approach. Flipping, renting, commercial, residential, lending, hard money lending, all these things, right? You've got to tailor it to the market you're in. In order to do that, you've got to have someone on your side that really, really, really knows the market that you're in. And so obviously, I would say that's a great real estate agent or broker. If we can ever be that person for you, we help serious investors all day, every day. You can call us or text us at 214-310-0008. That's 214-310-0008 or online at overunderagent.com. Overunderagent.com. We guarantee to sell your home over the average price and under the average time. And if you'd like an all-cash offer, we'd be happy to do that for you too, because that's one of the ways we help our clients invest as well. We'll be back next week with more Texas real estate on WBAP.